Hi guys, welcome! In the previous episode of my Gunslinger guide series, we've discussed the overview of the Gunslinger class and showcased their auxiliary skills. This time we'll take a closer look at their auto-attack build for farming. This is the second episode of the series wherein we'll discuss the stats, skills, runes, equipment, cards, and tips that can help you prepare for a specific Gunslinger build. Alright, without further ado, let's begin. As discussed in the previous episode, Gunslingers' basic attacks are just repetitions of a single animation. The attack frequency is affected by attack speed, and thus you can have a standard ADL auto-attack build for farming. The main advantage of using normal attacks for farming is that it does not consume any ammunition, so you will skip the reload mechanics. However, in order for this build to be fully efficient, you will need a decent Flying Meteor class S rune. This will grant 30% to 100% chance of launching a tracking bullet to a random enemy whenever you perform basic attacks or any gun-related skills. Tracking bullet deals range physical damage to enemies hit. It is not considered an auto-attack and does not deal critical damage. Thus, if you want to have higher tracking bullet damage, you will need to get a higher value on the second line of the rune, can increase your skill damage, and ignore def stats. Activating the third line effect of the rune is also essential as it will let you launch 2 tracking bullets and thus be able to kill 3 monsters at a time. The combination of long-range auto-attacks, high attack speed, and chance to trigger tracking bullet damage will certainly improve the Gunslinger's farming efficiency. Just be reminded that this build requires a huge investment for it to be effective, similar to the crit-type auto-attack builds of other classes. You'll need to increase a lot of stats such as crit damage, auto-attack damage, skill damage, and ignore def. Thus, this build is only recommended for veteran players who already have decent handbook investment. For beginners, it's better to start with the pistol or rifle skill damage build, which we'll discuss in the next episode of this series. First, let's discuss the important stats for this build. For stat point allocation, prioritize putting points on dex as it is a stat that primarily increases range physical attack, hence it will be the foundation for increasing your DPS. Second, allot sufficient points on agi, which is just enough to reach the max attack speed of 480%. When allotting agi, also consider the agi and attack speed that you will get from equipment, cards, runes, and buffs. Do take note that it is easier to max the attack speed of pistols than rifles, so you may need to have higher agi if going rifle build. Lastly, allot your remaining points on luck for increased chance of landing a critical hit on a target, which will increase your auto-attack damage. Every 3 luck increases crit rate by 1, and getting at least 100 crit will be enough in PvE. Other stats that you should increase for this build are range damage, physical damage increase, physical penetration, as well as race, size, and element damage modifiers, as these stats will enhance both your auto-attack and tracking bullet damage. If your auto-attacks can't one-hit kill the monster you're farming, then you need to build higher crit damage and auto-attack damage. But if the problem is the damage of your tracking bullet, then you need to get a better rune or just increase your skill damage and ignore def stats. Moreover, having high movement speed is also essential unless you'll use Stay Alert. Up next, let's discuss the most important skills for this build. There are only a few skills that affect auto-attack and tracking bullet, and they are as follows. First is a coin flip third job skill, which grants a 2-minute buff depending if you flip heads or tails. If it's heads, your luck and magic attack will increase, and if it's tails, your agi and movement speed will increase. But if you have the third line of the Cheating Tips class S rune, casting coin flip will grant the effects of both heads and tails. The extra luck, agi, and movement speed from this buff will help improve your farming efficiency. Second is the God's Wrath 4th job skill and its enhancement skill, which grants a 15-second buff that increases your pen by 30% and ignore def by 18%. If you kill a target while the buff is active, its duration will reset, so you will no longer need to recast it repeatedly while farming. And lastly, there are passive skills that can help improve your damage depending on the weapon you're using. If you'll be using a rifle weapon for farming, then you need to get the Rifling Process passive skill, which increases your auto-attack range by 3 meters. Another good skill for the rifle users is the Hawkeye buff skill, which further increases the range of rifle's auto attacks by 4 meters. However, you will not be able to move when this buff is active, so you need to find a good farming spot where you can stay alert. In addition, it's prohibited to put Hawkeye in the auto skill bar, so you cannot use it during offline battle. Hawkeye also has a star rune, which will increase your ignore def by up to 20% when the buff is active. If you'll be using a pistol weapon for farming, then you need to get the max breakthrough of the Pistol Mastery passive skill, which increases attack by 80, hit by 60, and physical damage increase by 10%. To unlock this skill, you need at least level 5 Rapid Shower and level 7 Piercing Shot. Another good skill for pistol users is Hand Feel, which reduces the flee and def of targets hit by pistol attacks. To unlock this skill, you need at least level 3 Crossfire and level 10 Desperado. Once you've leveled up these skills, just allot the remaining points on any skill of your choice. For the farming setup, just put Auto Attack, Coin Flip, and God's Wrath in your auto skill bar and set your character to offline battle. But if you want to farm manually while online, just tick Stay Alert and manually cast Hawkeye every 2 minutes. To help improve farming efficiency, you may consume the following alloys and food buffs: Dex, Agi, and Luck Meal or Gold Hot Bento Box for increasing attributes by 10, range damage by 20%, attack speed by 20%, and crit by 20. Slow Attack Alloy for boosting attack by 100, Awakening Potion for increasing attack speed, Satisfied Feast for boosting attack and pen, or Original Will Fish Steak for boosting attack and movement speed, and Elemental Converters to take advantage of the monster's elemental weakness. Up next, let's discuss the most important runes to get. For Acer Monument, there are only a few runes and nodes that can help improve the efficiency of the auto-attack build, and they are as follows. For advanced runes, we've already discussed earlier that the foundation for this build is having a Flying Meteor Class S rune with decent values on the first 2 lines and the 3rd line effect activated. This will ensure that you frequently trigger Tracking Bullet twice and have enough damage to one-hit kill the monster's hit. The other runes that can help improve your farming efficiency are as follows. First is a Cheating Tips Class S rune with the 3rd line activated. This will grant the effects of both heads and tails, so you'll get extra luck, agi, and movement speed. If using a rifle, you should aim for the high value in the 2nd line to compensate for the low attack speed of rifles. And the other one is a Death Gaze Star rune with high value on the 1st line, as it will increase your Tracking Bullets damage against high def monsters when the Hawkeye buff is active. As for the attribute runes, prioritize upgrading the following to increase your damage. Up next, let's dive into the suggested equipment set and cards. As mentioned earlier, the stats you should be looking for when choosing equipment are as follows. These stats will enhance the damage of both auto attack and tracking bullet. For weapon, you can use any of the new gun weapons and just choose depending if you're planning to build a pistol or a rifle skill build. For a rifle, the only option is a Terminator Sniper Rifle, which increases attack, dex, luck, and range physical damage. Its Sin version, when refined to plus 15, will grant a total of 650 attack, 8 dex, 20 luck, 5% ignore def, and 15% range physical damage. Pairing it with the new Armor Sniper's Coat will activate a set effect which increases rifle's auto attack and skill range by 1 meter. The main advantage of choosing rifle over pistol is its longer auto attack range and higher damage potential. Meanwhile, for a pistol, there are 2 options available, but Gold Lux pistol is better for farming since the other option's stats are more PvP oriented. This pistol increases attack, dex, agi, and ignore def. Its Sin version, when refined to plus 15, will grant a total of 615 attack, 12 dex, 8 agi, 5% movement speed, 5% attack, and 20% ignore def. The main advantage of choosing pistol over rifle is its faster attack speed and the option to use AoE skills for farming. For weapon enchantment, aim for a high PDI stat and arch for 4th enchant. For weapon cards, it's cheaper and more efficient to use any race, size, or element damage modifier cards and just switch depending on the monster you're farming. If you already have sufficient damage even without these cards, then you may opt to use a Doppelganger Star card to get 500% attack speed. This will really help with the slow attack speed of rifles. For Offhand, the best in slot is the Helion Bracelet due to the massive boost in range physical damage it gives. Ideally, it should be refined to plus 10 or plus 15 for higher percent attack and range physical damage. The ideal ancient equipment alternative for Helion Bracelet is Bone Flute with plus 18% physical damage random stat. For Offhand enchantment, aim for a high PDI and armor breaking for 4th enchant. For Offhand cards, it's cheaper and more efficient to use any element damage modifier cards and just switch depending on the monster you are farming. But if you don't want to switch cards, then just use an Anubis Star card for plus 5% damage to all races. For armor, you can just use the new Sniper's Coat in the early game. You can craft and upgrade it using the following materials. But from mid to late game, there are lots of options for ancient equipment available, so just choose any of the following depending on which stat you're lacking. You may opt to use the synth version of Sniper's Coat, which grants a total of 20 dex, 5% attack, and 10% physical damage at plus 15 refinement. If using a rifle, it grants a plus 5% physical damage and additional 1 meter auto attack and skill range. But if using a pistol, it grants plus 10% ignore def. Here are the materials for synthesizing Sniper's Coat into Hunter's Combat Uniform. For armor enchantment, aim for a high PDI stat and arch for 4th enchant. For armor cards, you may use any of the following cards. For garment, it depends on which stat you're lacking. If you need to increase your normal attack damage, then get a high refined Cloud Undershirt since it boosts your luck, percent attack, crit damage, and auto attack damage. But if you need to increase the damage of Tracking Bullet, then get a high refined White Duke Manteau as it increases percent attack, ignore def, and skill damage. Between the two, White Duke Manteau is more universal as it is also suitable for the pistol and rifle skill damage build of Gunslinger. For garment enchantment, just aim for a high PDI stat. For garment cards, you may use any of the following cards. For footgear, you can use the new Gunslinger exclusive Sniper's Boots in the early game. You can craft and upgrade it using the following materials. Then from mid to late game, the 3 most suitable options are St. Mary's Cloth Shoes for a huge boost in percent attack, or Bristle Shoes for more crit damage, or the synth version of Sniper's Boots which increases percent attack and range damage. Among the 3, I think a plus 15 Stalker's Boots would provide the highest increase in both auto attack and tracking bullet damage. For footgear enchantment, just aim for a high PDI stat. For footgear cards, you may use any of the following cards. For accessory, there's a new accessory exclusive for the Gunslinger class called Sniper's Medal, which increases dex, ignore def, and range physical damage. You can craft and upgrade it using the following materials. Its synth version grants additional 3% range physical damage at plus 15 refinement. Other options are Dog Servant, which grants dex, range attack and damage, and extra damage to demon and brute race, or Cat Paw Stamp, which grants dex, pen, and extra damage to undead and plant race. For enchantment, just aim for a high PDI stat. For accessory cards, just use any element or race damage modifier cards depending on the monster you're fighting. But if you don't want to switch cards, then you may use any of the following cards. For headgears, there's a lot of options for both gacha and non-gacha, so just choose the ones you already have that will give the highest boost in the following stats. As for enchantment, just aim for a high attack and dex stats overall, physical damage increase for face and tail, or arch 4th enchant for tail. If you need to increase your auto attack damage, aim for crit damage and zeal 4th enchant in your head and mouth items. And if you need to increase your tracking bullets damage, aim for morale 4th enchant in your face and back items. Lastly, here are some other things that you need to prepare in advance. First, prepare 88 Big Cat coins to avail of the multi-job function and change into Gunslinger. If you want, you can use the Cryptura Academy program to become 4th job in just 2 days. However, if you already used up your chance, just save up enough job potions from events, Assistant Medal, and the Wasteland Spirit Tree. Second, for pets, you may capture the following pets that can increase your damage. Then use Talent Fruit to get the highest possible stats. Third, boost your raw stats further with Guild Blessing and Guild Prayers. For Guild Blessing, you need to max your Combat Blessing to 200, and then for Praying cards, prioritize Pen, Attack, and ignore Death for attack cards, and Wind damage for element cards, as most of the new monsters in Komodo are of water element. Fourth, for Oracle Mirror, you may choose to extract the attack attributes of any of the following gears, depending on your budget and a stat you're lacking. A high refined combustible knife or claw, which affects both auto attack and tracking bullet damage. A high refined slash or heartbreaker, which affects auto attack damage only. Or a high refined chieftain's axe, which affects tracking bullet damage only. Fifth, for Ancient Relics, the options for blue relics are Waste Scythe for boosting dex and percent attack, Dark Knight Shadow Ring for boosting dex, luck, and crit damage, or Valkyrie's Protection for boosting ignored death. But for purple relics, you can choose depending on your playstyle in PvP. And lastly, invest in Loss of Attack, unlock and deposit rewards in your adventure handbook. Unlocking the following multi-jobs will also provide additional attributes. Alright, so far we've discussed the stats, skills, runes equipment cards, and tips to help you gear up for your Gunslinger auto-attack build. Stay tuned for the next episode of my Gunslinger guide series as we'll focus more on the stats, skills, runes equipment, and tips for the pistol build of Gunslingers. Alright, that's it for this video guys. Don't forget to like if you enjoyed watching this guide. If you're new here, I would love for you to consider subscribing by hitting the red subscribe button down below. I would love to have you back. Thank you for watching and see you in our next episode.